Hello, this is Malorian, this is the Orc Tactical Team, and what we're actually going to be talking about today is Animosity, something very core to the Orc and Goblin Army. And the reason why this comes up is that, you know, on Wars here, there was a person I follow his battle reports. We've been talking about things for quite a while, and he's been having, He-Man, no. Can you put that down? And that's actually kind of good, but here, let me explain why. He's been having some trouble with Animosity, and so much trouble that it's been really pissing him off. I could almost say it's one of the type of things like, you know, when your kids get into trouble. It's one of those things that just pisses you off, and when it comes up, like, God, you know, I wish I could just throw these guys in the trash. Which you would obviously not do, and hopefully you're not going to be throwing your orcs and goblins in the garbage either. But the big thing I want to talk about is just the kind of math behind it and the actual physical things you can do just to control it as well. So of course, what you're doing at the start of the turn, rolling a dice for each one, and if they fail, bad stuff can happen. And I think one of the big things you have to kind of first look at it is that bad is a relative term, because actually the majority of animosity doesn't really matter. I mean, sure, if you roll that dice and you roll a 1, you're going to be picking a fight with the closest unit that's also subject to animosity within 12. They're going to hurt each other. Both can't do anything that turn. And that's really the worst one that could possibly happen. But, you know, first you have to roll a 1 for this to happen, for them to fail animosity. Then you have to roll a 1 again. So this is only a 1 in 36 chance this is actually going to happen. Now, the results 2 to 5 is to either charge or do nothing. Now, pretty much, unless this is on the very first turn so that a charge isn't possible, it doesn't really matter because you're orcs and goblins. You know, as long as you're designing an army that is not going to sit back, that's actually aggressive to get in there, forcing to charge is not a bad thing. Now, of course, if this happens to something like your fast cav or something like that, that can be bad. But again, there's ways to control that. If we were talking about fast cav and wanting to get up there, all you have to do is when you're rushing up, and if you're not setting yourself up so you can be trying to charge a war machine next turn, you just turn them around or something. You got all the wheels and stuff you want to do, right? Why not just face a board edge? Sure, it could be a thing where that means you're going to do nothing and you're going to get charged and killed, but the main thing here is at least you're not going to charge in and give like a free overrun to the opponent type thing, right? So it's really, I mean, again, there's ways to control it. So as long as it's not the first turn, usually for your blocks, they're just charging on in. And then, of course, there's the roll of a 6, which is a free move, which is just fantastic. All of a sudden, it could be opening up flank charges or a charge that before was a long charge, now it wasn't so bad. And, I mean, these things are all good. And, I mean, if you look at it, too, I mean, you could look at the math as, well, okay, rolling a double 1, that's a 1 in 36 chance. But I mean, as long as you have 6 units over the course of the game, you're going to have 6 failures, and at least it's going to happen once a game. But really, again, it's really that first turn that's critical. After that, a lot of stuff is already charging in combat. In future turns, you don't test if they're already in combat. You know, of course, you're going to be losing units and things. So you don't see double 1s every single game. Even if you had 6 units that were susceptible to it, you don't see double 1s every single game because that's not how the numbers work. I mean, if you're just standing around doing nothing, then sure, that would happen. But you're in combat, things are happening, and that's just the way it goes. Now, so that's kind of the numbers right there. And I guess the next thing to talk about is ways where you can control this. Now, we already talked about one with the fast cav, where you can stop yourself from charging something and dying for free by looking away, but there's also the option of just making sure to take units that are not susceptible to animosity. And so there'll be things like black orcs, or you can be taking your trolls, or there's other things too where you can be putting black orc characters inside of units so that if you ever do fail animosity, they'll just kill a couple of guys and everything is fine. And of course, I mean, you don't want to be paying this pure tax just to control animosity, so you can always try and work it in with other things you're already taking. If you're taking a BSB, you know, and you're really worried about your savages failing, well, maybe you should be taking a Black Orc BSB that can go to the corner of your savages, and now you don't need to worry about them screwing up in the first turn and losing all that movement. The other thing you can do with that, with the Black Orcs, I mean, maybe with your War Boss, you're going to do that and he'll be in some unit. But again, I mean, it's a lot of points. And so when you look at it, if you look at my list of my battle reports, I don't pay for these Black Orc characters. I don't pay those extra points. I just accept it because first looking at the odds, I just kind of say, you know what, this is not going to happen very often. And then the other part of it too is you can also control it by separation. Remember, they can only fight if they're within a foot, and so if you're careful with the way that you're placing units, let's say your center unit could be something like your trolls, then you could have the Savage Orc Biggins on one side, let's say on the other side is your Night Goblins, and as long as those two units are more than 12 inches apart, they can't fight each other. Now, of course, this comes in problem where sometimes they fight with your bunker, and this can be very annoying because if your bunker gets into a fight, then all of a sudden it means you don't get any magic. And this is probably one of the worst sides of Animosity, is when you get the double ones, and it means that you, or one of the other results, like you have to charge or do nothing, and then all of a sudden you don't get a magic phase. And so, again, this is where if you're going to do a bunker, it could be a thing where you keep them farther back, but if you're keeping them more than 12 inches away from a unit, they're not going to be able to get the BSB advantage. So it might be a thing where, you know, I've heard some people like having a bunker of Black Orcs. Sometimes that BSB that's at the very back, he's a Black Orc. You know, or again, you can just say, you know what, I'm just going to accept these odds and just deal with it. Another thing with this, with dealing with it, is a whole thing where sometimes what you lose because of a failed Animosity is movement. You know, if you fail that Animosity on the first turn where you have to charge and do nothing, all of a sudden your Savage Orc Biggins that you want to be rushing as fast as possible are stuck in the back. And one of the things that's very nice about the Orc and Goblin army is the fact that they have Hand of Gork. And you can now cast this on this unit, and now I'm far up again. So you can kind of counter these things as they happen. If you have a kind of break in your line, all of a sudden you can plug it with using Hand of Gork. So you have a little bit of control there. Of course, it's kind of bad that you're having to use magic to counteract this. But one of the things you have to really understand about the Orc and Goblin army is that we're very powerful. I mean, if you look at some of the units that we have access to with the Savage Orc Biggins, the Black Orcs, the Trolls, the Squig Herds, you know, all the cheap chariots and stuff, we have an amazing army. And the fact that we have to deal with Animosity is, I'm fine with that trade-off any day. I mean, you have to admit, we're a very powerful killy army, right? I mean, if you look at an Ogre that gets 3 strength 4 attacks for all the points they are, and then for about a third of the cost, we have a Savage Orc Biggin that gets 3 strength 5 attacks. I mean, we are freaking deadly. Or if you compare them to a Troll, like we're a very powerful army, and if it wasn't for Animosity, I think you'd be hearing people out there talking about how Orcs and Goblins are just plain out broken. It seems it's one of those things that kind of helps bring them back. Now, talk about bringing them back, that's one thing where all of a sudden you don't see people winning them with them in tournaments. Because, I mean, if you look at a tournament that could be 6 games, you might expect that in at least one of them, it's going to, let's say, screw you over. Now, whether screw you over means it's making you lose or get a minor win instead of a massacre, really Animosity might be bringing you back. So if you're looking at it, you know, I need Animosity to be perfect so that I can win at a tournament. If you really need to have that certainty, you might actually want to go the next step and actually control it completely with one of these special characters. If you take something like Gorbad, so that if somebody fails within his range, then you're going to be adding his wounds to the result, so at least you know you're not going to be getting that double ones as long as he's alive, and there's actually a very good chance you're going to be getting this free movement. So if you really need to have that certainty, plus you have the leadership 10, that might be the thing you're going to go with. Of course, there's also the option of where you could go with Azhag, because then within his range, people get to re-roll if they fail. But again, I mean, I wouldn't think that in a tournament that'd be the way you want to go, because he's going to take a cannon to the face. I mean, at least even with Gorbad, you're going to all of a sudden need to have a bunker of, say, Spider Riders or Wolf Riders or something, so that he can't be sniped out. But I mean, there are ways to do that to get more certainty. But at the end of the day, this is Orcs. We're powerful, we're crazy, and Animosity is just one of the things you have to deal with. And so if it is really pissing you off and you're finding that it's losing you games and you're feeling like throwing them away, you know, just take that moment to look at it, working out the way that the numbers actually are. It's not like you should be screwed up over every game. The way that you can control it by keeping different units 12 inches away, or by putting Black Orc characters in there. And then if you really need it, you can always take those awesome special characters, which is just pretty much shuts down Animosity, so it's not a problem anymore. So there you have it. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you later. Bye.